Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture. In the earlier sessions, in relation to the determination of residential status and tax incidents, we discussed about section 6 and section 5. Section 6 was broadly about determination of residential status in relation to individuals, which can be resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, what conditions to be satisfied in order to call a person as ROR or RNOR or non-resident. That is for individuals, and HUF also. These three statuses were possible. For all other type of SSCs, only two possibilities, either resident or non-resident. So the first portion that is related to the residential status determination was all contained in section 6 of the Income Tax Act, which we discussed earlier, and we have solved some questions also on that. Now we have been discussing about the scope of total income, which is also possible to be called as tax incidence, contained in section 5, wherein we started understanding what types of incomes are taxable in the hands of different types of SSCs. For example, in case of ROR, what type of income is taxable? Every income is taxable. Global income means whatever the income, whether it is received in India, not received in India, accrued in India, not accrued in India, wherever it is accrued, wherever it is received, and whatever the place of accrual and receipt may be, doesn't matter. For an ROR, every income is taxable. Whereas for non-resident, on the other side, only that income which is received or deemed to be received, accrued or arisen or deemed to accrue or arise in India only will be taxable. If it is happening only in India, then only it is taxable in the hands of a non-resident. So income received or deemed to be received, accrued or deemed to accrue or arise in India will be taxable for non-resident. Irrespective of that fact, wherever the income is earned or received, global income is taxable for ROR. Only for RNOR, of course, whatever is taxable for non-resident, that is taxable for RNOR also. There is no doubt about it. So income which is received or deemed to be received, accrued or arisen or deemed to accrue or arise in India, also taxable for RNOR. So these two are basically the same. Both are same. Whatever is taxable for non-resident is definitely taxable for RNOR. However, in addition to that, there is just one more thing that is also taxable for RNOR. Even though the income accrues or arises outside India, still it is taxable for RNOR if it is derived from a business controlled in India or from a profession which is set up in India. So these two words are relevant only for RNOR. In that case, such incomes, though they have been earned outside India, shall become taxable in India for RNOR. So this is the overall scope of total income under section 5. So this is the crux of this chapter, and what we have to finally use the provisions of Income Tax Act while solving the questions will be in general in relation to section 5 and section 6. Of course, as a continuation of that discussion, we had to understand various detailed provisions and very particular special cases. In some cases there are exceptions. In some cases there are certain conditions which have to be satisfied for determination of residential status. Those things we discussed. For HUF also, for others like firms and companies also, how to determine residential status we discussed. In the case of determination of scope of total income or tax incidence, we have ultimately identified how the tax incidence arises. Once again, here also there are some very particular exceptions. So special cases apart, in general these are the various key provisions which will be useful for us in solving the problems of tax incidence or taxability of various incomes in relation to different types of SSCs with different residential statuses. That is the ultimate objective of this particular chapter. However, We also started about understanding the various words which are used in section 5, which talk about what is received. Received means what? What is deemed to be received? So received is basically whenever it is first received. What is deemed to be received is contained in section 7. That details of section 7 we have discussed. Once again, what is the difference between accrual and due? Accrual is different, due is different, receipt is different. Those things we already touched upon in relation to understanding those terminologies. And another important area in relation to understanding of the taxability, particularly for non-residents, is income which is deemed to accrue or arise in India. Of course, this is more relevant and applicable for non-residents and RNOR. Why? Because for residents, anyway, it doesn't matter whether the income deemed to accrue or arise in India or not, it doesn't matter. For resident who is ordinarily resident, anyway, any type of income is taxable. That is why for RNOR and non-resident, even if the income is actually looking like it has been earned outside India, still it is deemed to accrue or arise in India under section 9. This is the very crucial point which we have been discussing in the previous session, and these points will be useful in problem solving also. So what are the things which are deemed to accrue or arise in India always are those types of incomes which are directly or indirectly earned through or from any business connection in India, through or from any property or asset situated in India, through or from the transfer of any capital asset situated in India, and by way of salary earned for services rendered in India, by way of dividend earned from an Indian company, though it is paid outside India, still it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, if anybody earns a salary, though it is payable outside India, if it is payable by the Indian government to an Indian citizen for the services rendered outside India, still that will be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, if the interest, royalty or fees for technical services is payable by the government of India, automatically that is taxable in India because it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, if interest is paid for any loan which has been taken for the purpose of any business or profession in India, definitely that will be taxable. That will also be considered as if it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. The interest which has been actually paid outside India also will still be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, royalty and fees for technical services also, if the services are actually utilized for the purpose of a business or profession in India or for the purpose of earning any income from any source in India, then such incomes will be deemed to accruing or arising in India. These are the three different things: interest, royalty, fees for technical services. Same way, there is a special provision of gift here. If any non-resident who is not within India or even a foreign company receives any gift after 5th of July 2019 for a sum of more than 50,000 rupees in the previous year, then such a gift, if it is paid by a resident Indian, then it will be taxable in India because it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. So even though this gift is actually paid outside India, still it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. So these are various aspects of section 9(1) which are very important in understanding the deeming provisions of when they are called as deemed to accrue or arise in India. And as a continuation of that, we started the discussion of what is a business connection in the earlier class. Business connection has different types of explanations, but basically what is a business connection is about having any business activity carried out in India through a person who is acting on behalf of a non-resident. That means basically doing any activity in India, not directly but indirectly through an agent also, is considered as if that non-resident is having business connection in India. And when can we say that there is a business connection? If that agent has an authority to conclude the contracts, if that agent maintains the stock of goods or merchandise in India, or that agent secures the address in India mainly or wholly for the non-resident. In such cases, we can say the non-resident is having business connection in India, though not directly, though the non-resident might not visit India and actually do anything in India, still he is having a business connection with India through an agent, through somebody else who is acting on his behalf. That is a point to be noted. Of course, there is another special situation. Should this connection be direct? Not necessarily. Even though the control of this agent in India is not directly happening, still we can say that there is a business connection. So, depending upon how one person is controlling the other person, and if the other person is having an agent in India, then both the people will be said to have business connection in India. So, the point here to note is the essence is it doesn't matter whether this relationship between the non-resident and agent is direct or indirect. Even in that cases where there is an indirect relationship, still we can call that as a business connection. Of course, there is an exception here for business connection. One of the exceptions already we can say this: if the agent who is acting is a general commission agent or any other agent who is a broker who does not work mainly or wholly for the non-resident, who does not work mainly or wholly for the non-resident. In that case, we cannot call that as a business connection. So that is one of the exceptions to the word business connection. And of course, one more addition to the business connection has been included recently called as significant economic presence. That has been added as an explanation to A to this section 911. So significant economic presence is about some non-resident having a business connection in India, again, not directly, through electronic mode. Somewhere the non-resident is outside India, but he is rendering some services in India through electronic mode or digital mode. In that case also, we can say that the person who is a non-resident is having a significant economic presence if that the revenue he earns through India or number of users that will have in India exceeds the prescribed amount as may be prescribed by the government. So if at all such threshold is crossed, then such non-resident is said to have significant economic presence, which means he is having business connection, which means the income he is earning by providing these kind of services to Indians is deemed to accrue or arise in India, though that person never came to India, though that person never received the money in India. Still it falls under the purview of income deemed to accrue or arise in India. And in this case, significant economic presence, while determining the significant economic presence, there is no necessity that there should be any agreement that is entered into India. So naturally, when you download a video game and all, not necessary that you are entering into any agreement. Automatically, just like that, somebody will pay the money and download some of the software services. So whether or not there is any agreement which is entered in India, whether or not the non-resident has any place of business in India, whether or not the non-resident renders services in India, so that non-resident need not render any actual services in India also. If he earns any money from India, that is enough. So once again, the government has taken these things very openly. So irrespective of the fact whether that non-resident has entered into any agreement in India or not, doesn't matter. Irrespective of that, we can still say there is some significant economic presence. Same way, irrespective of the fact whether that non-resident has any residence or place of business in India, is there any compulsion that he should have an office in India? Not necessary. He might be sitting somewhere else. We don't even know where he is. Lot of cases. There is no need that he renders the services in India also. So not necessary that service is actually rendered in India. So that is also not required. Maybe ultimate revenue that he might be generated that he is getting maybe through India, but not necessarily from India. So once again, indirectly if he is earning any money from India also, that becomes taxable. And already some people are thinking, how do we know, sir? How do we catch them, sir? My answer is once again same. We don't know, sir. We cannot catch them, sir. Only these are all provisions which the government wants to empower itself. If any such case, it will show this provision and say that, see, we have already a provision in the Income Tax Act, you pay the tax. Only for that. Otherwise, what happens? These people will escape the tax, and if at all really they made some income, and if at all there is any notice given to them to pay the tax, they will tell, show me under which provision you are asking us. We are not covered by our act, so we are not supposed to pay any tax to you. Like that, they will argue. Only to preempt that, only to prevent that, government will, just for, I would say, precautionary purposes, sometimes includes such type of provisions. Don't really think that it is easy really for the Indian government to find out some Belgian or an Austrian gaming developer and catch him and find him and taxing him and all. This is all nonsense. That is, I mean, practically not possible. So theoretically, they have to pay tax. Yes, according to law, they have to pay tax. But how do we catch them is a $1 million question. Nobody knows that. So we don't care about it. That is none of our business. Don't you worry about the government. Government will take care of those things. We are worried about the law. So the law tells these are the things. We are just supposed to know them. Yes, there is some definition called as significant economic presence. What is that? And that significant economic presence is supposed to be there. It is deemed to be there. This is significant economic presence, irrespective of the fact whether any agreement has been entered in India, irrespective of the fact whether that non-resident has any place of business or any residence in India, irrespective of the fact whether the services are rendered in India or also not. Doesn't matter. In spite of any of these things, it will be taxable in India. Of course, we cannot say the global income of such person is taxable in India. Naturally, entire money that he is earning throughout the world, we cannot tax it. How much can be taxed? Simply only proportionate amount. In other words, only so much of income as is attributable, which is attributable to the transactions activities which are referred in the above A and B points, which are deemed to occur or arise in India. So to the extent of those things which have actually accrued in India, that only will become taxable. So that is another, I would say, one way unnecessary provision, but still government wants that, so that is their wish, they introduced. So few more cases, a few more Supreme Court cases. Definitely few more lawyers will get lakhs and crores of rupees of fees from these provisions. They are happy. For us, we may get, say, 2 to 3 marks if it is given in the examination. Other than that, there is no big deal about these words. We can introduce any type of words, generic words, but whether it really helps or not, these are the actual provisions which have been introduced. Significant economic presence is a new one. So more possible question. Definitely the possibility of such questions being asked is more whenever there is a new thing which has been introduced recently. So understand this, and you should be able to write just like 5 to 6 lines at least about significant economic presence. That is enough. A short note on significant economic presence would be enough. Maximum marks will be only 4 marks. That is like too much. That 2, 3, 4 are the possible marks for any such short note question. So that is significant economic presence. Business connection is a bigger short note. Definitely business connection has certain points to be written. What is a business connection in general? And business connection could be indirect also, direct also. That point you should write. Business connection is not supposed to be there when there is no mainly or wholly dependency of the non-resident on the agent in India. So if this agent in India does not work mainly or wholly for the non-resident, then we cannot say there is business connection. So these are various points. Now continuing with the same discussion, once again only for theoretical purposes, where in the following cases, so what we are talking about now is exceptions to the definition of business connection. Already the law has messed it up. So many things are there. First, where we started with where the incomes are received. Very simple. Then we talked about incomes which are deemed to be received. Okay, reasonable, understandable, because though they are not received, because they are all completely for the benefit of the SSC, we can deem them to have been received. No problem. Income accrued in India also is understandable because if it is earned in India. So where all this all started, actual new things which are not or may not be logical, but still they are there. That all started with section 9.1. 9.1 is the income deemed to accrue or arise in India. In that, apart from many other points, there is one more point called business connection. If any income is earned by any SSC through or from a business connection in India is the word used in 9.1. So we are talking about what is a business connection, what is not a business connection, what is significant economic presence. All these things are part of section 9.1. Now, after discussing about what is a business connection, let us continue the discussion on what is not a business connection. Once again, if anybody asks why, no answers for these questions, sir. These are all government whims and fancies. If the government thinks that there is business connection, sir, there is business connection. If the government thinks there is no business connection, there is no business connection. So you cannot say why, or how is it fair, is it not fair? All these things will not have any answers, because ultimately it is the government who decides on these provisions. Unfortunately, it has decided to create confusion when it comes to the word business connection. Unfortunately, it created confusion when it comes to the word POEM, that is place of effective management. So many cases are there. And in addition to them, because as if it is not enough, they created one new word called as significant economic presence and opened up litigation for themselves. So ultimately, they want litigation is what is clear. They want to send notices to people paying that you have to pay tax. People will anyway defend themselves by saying that no, I don't have to pay tax from so and so reasons. And that court case will go on. Practically, this is what is going to happen with this. But once again, these are all high profile things, not small things. Very, very big cases. These are all going to be. Once again, why is that? Because we are talking about foreign companies. If it is Indian company, we are not talking about any of these things. Not required also. Automatically, everything is taxable for it. Problem is, foreign multinational companies which are not having any real physical presence in India, still earning some income through India, from India, are also to be brought within the purview of the Income Tax Act. How to do that? Earlier they were all escaping the tax. Now how to do that is by introducing these type of provisions. The government is trying to bring them within the purview of the Income Tax Act. Whether it will succeed or not, you and I cannot decide. Court will decide. That is how the understanding of this particular aspect should be. Not black and white. This entire thing is gray. Can't help it. That is what it is. Next. What can be the question now? Theory question. Of course, I write a short note on the word business connection is a direct question. Sometimes it can be asked like this also. What is business connection and what are the exceptions where something is not called as a business connection? So when anything will not be treated as a business connection. So the following shall not be treated as a business connection in India. So you can just go through that very quickly. No need to go through them very detailed also, because headings themselves will tell us what does it mean. First point. So only these points directly you should write. This is an explanation one. So what are we talking about? Which are not business connections. We are talking about which are not business connections. So the following things are not business connections. What are those? First, in case of a business in respect of which all the operations are not carried out in India. So if at all there is any business which is having some operations carried out in India and some operations are carried out outside India. Just let me also once again remind you, are we talking about residents here? No, sir. For residents, there is no discussion required. We are talking about non-residents. Non-residents. For them, we are talking about whether there is a business connection or not. We are telling there is no business connection here if a non-resident is not having the entire operations in India. Means partly he has certain operations in India, partly he has some operations outside India. Then naturally common sense. How much will be taxable in India? Naturally the amount which is attributable to the operations carried out in India. Only to that extent will be considered as having business connection. The ones which are not carried out in India, which are outside India, how can that be considered as accrued or arisen in India? Not possible. So this is a common sense point. We don't need a separate explanation for that. So what is the case here? A non-resident having a business partly in India, partly outside India. Question is how much having business connection, how much is accrued or arising in India? Of course, to that extent which is attributable to the operations carried out in India. So naturally, that other part which cannot be attributed to the operations in India is not deemed to accrue or arise in India, which is related to the income earned outside India. That's a common point. Point number one, when there is no business connection. Another very important point here, the next point is the purchase of goods in India for export. If somebody is doing that, we cannot call that as a business connection in India. So look at this one, a non-resident, what is he doing? He is purchasing goods. Where? In India. Why? Not to eat or not to sell in India also. Why is he doing that? He is buying in India for exporting them to outside India. But he is earning income, no? He is earning income. But is he earning income by selling them in India? No, sir. But he is earning income by selling them outside India. But he is buying them from India. He is purchasing the goods from India. So should we say that thanks because you have purchased goods from our country and you made money from purchasing goods from our country, pay tax to us? Can we say that? That doesn't sound good. And on the other side, we also want our exports to be more. We don't want exports to be curtailed. We want to encourage the exports. So what we say? No, don't worry, Baba. Anybody who is a non-resident can purchase goods in India and export to them and pay zero tax. No need of any taxability because, first of all, the income has not been earned in India. Why? Because the export means the goods are not sold in India. Those are sold outside India. But goods are purchased in India. Logically, common sense wise, if you see, can we punish a person for purchasing from us? Is doing good thing not to India. So that will be absolutely pathetic. If we say just because you purchased goods from us and then you made money by using our goods, then you made money, definitely yes. You profited from our goods only by exporting them to somewhere else. So you pay tax to us because you made profit from our goods. Can we tell that? If we tell that, that will be pathetic. That is why that is not fair to call those people as having business connection in India. So if a non-resident purchases goods in India and exports them, simple, no business connection, nothing is taxable in that person's hands. That's it. That is another point to be noted. And the next one also is common sense point. Collection of news and views in India for transmission out of India. Like international news agencies like BBC, CNN, for example, they come and collect some news in India or views in India and they use this video footage or whatever outside India also. So should we say that pay tax on that because you came to India and shot some video footage within India? Because you have interviewed some person in India, you have to pay money to us. That will be ridiculous because end of the day, journalism is also very important profession. So when somebody comes to India, non-resident obviously, non-resident, when somebody comes to India and collects the news or views and transmits outside India and makes money out of that also, we don't know, we don't care also. Why? Because it is not said to be having business connection in India. In such case, nothing will be taxable in the hands of that person. But one is that if the collection of news and views is happening in India, transmission is happening out of India. So already some of you are asking, what if BBC gets money in India? Those are all separate things. That is not part of the exception here. Exception is only when non-resident is coming to India for collection of news and views and transmitting out of India. So once again, I am repeating this common logic of everywhere in the act we should understand. If the law says about X, we have to think about X only. When we are talking about X, if you think about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, everything if you think about, this X will go. So if X is what is told by law, that means that is X only. All remaining things are not covered in this particular provision. So if we say that some person is having only part of the operations in India, to that extent only it is taxable, that's it. Then if you ask how do we know how much percentage in India, we should know. There should be a mechanism. Somehow that will be all done by real people in the real world, not by you and me. So that is not what we should worry about. But what we should worry about is the exception to the word business connection. If anybody is having a business connection partly in India, that is okay. To that extent only it will be taxable. To the extent where the income is accrued outside India, that will not be taxable in India. Natural point. The same way, if somebody purchases goods from India for exporting, nothing is taxable, since that is called as not having any business connection. Same way, if somebody comes to India for shooting of any cinematographic films in India, like some Hollywood producer or director comes to India, of course, non-resident, naturally. So non-resident comes to India and shooting of a cinematographic film in India. In that case, also, there is nothing that is taxable in those persons' hands. One way we are encouraging these two things, the journalistic things, as well as purchase of goods in India for export. Same way, come to India, shoot the cinematographic films, and show them everywhere in the world and make money. Then can we say that because you shot in our country, pay tax to us? That will be again not so fair. So we say that no, no, don't worry, no business connection. Just coming to India and shooting a cinematographic film is not considered as a business connection. If they stopped there, that would have been fantastic. But we know, fantastic, our babus, our IAS people who will draft these laws will not stop there and see that they have created an exception to exceptional. So I don't know what is their problem, but this is the problem of the law. The law is like that, what we can do. This may not be important really for exam purposes, but to understand how pathetic our law drafting is, we can understand these things. Only for that purpose, this is okay to understand. See, okay, come somebody, a non-resident, coming to India for shooting a cinematographic film. To that extent, it is clear. That is okay. If they are confining to shooting of any cinematographic film in India, there is no problem. However, conditions also they have kept. What are the, still till now it's okay. This is quite good because they are accepting them. We should accept them or not. If you just come common sense wise, if you see somebody is doing a business only partly in India, 30% of his overall world business is from India. Can we say his 100% income is taxable in India, though he is a non-resident? Nonsense. We cannot do that. So we say only, Baba, how much money you earn in India, that much only you pay. 30% only you pay. Understandable. Same way, somebody comes to India for purchase of goods for export. He did not get any money from India. He did not earn any money in India. He just used our goods for making money to export. And now we also are desperate for exports. So should we tax him also? Absolutely nonsense. So we said no tax, no business connection. Some journalist comes to India for interviewing something or news or views he is collecting and then he is transmitting outside India and we send him tax notice. Will be ridiculous. Internationally will be completely defamed if we do that. Absolute nonsense. So that also we are not doing. So we saved our reputation, country's reputation, by saying that no, there is no business connection. Don't worry. Anybody can just come to India, collect news or views, make money, whatever you want to do, you do. No taxability. Of course, all this is for non-residents only we are talking. Same way somebody from somewhere other country comes to India and does a shooting of some cinematographic films, then goes, okay. Just because they have shot something in India, they did not make any money in India. Actually speaking, they have spent money in India. When they come to India, when they shoot for films in India, are they going to make money in India? No. They're going to spend money in India. So many people would have come to India. They would have stayed in hotels. Let us say 30, 40 days they stayed here for shooting. So much of money they would have distributed to the local people who have worked for that film in India. So definitely that is a boost for our economy. It is good thing for our economy if somebody comes and shoots a cinematographic film in India. Actually, in many countries also like that, they encourage outside countries people to come to their country and shoot. And the recent past, I just read somewhere, Georgia as a country is doing that. And most of the movies in the recent past in Telugu have been shot there only. Saira Narasimha Reddy was shot there. Kancha originally was shot there. Even most of this Gautami Putra Satakarani was shot there. And Georgian government gives money to the people who are coming there and shooting. It encourages people to go there and shoot. Like that, that government is helpful. Okay, we are not Georgia, we don't bother about that. We are India. So, yeah, we have our own complex brains and complex taxes. Fine, that's fine. In spite of that, what we said, good thing what we said is, no problem, sir. You just come to India, shoot any cinematographic films, and go. No worry, don't worry. No need to worry about that because it is not a business connection. No problem. Till this, it's okay. There is not a business connection. Means everybody is happy. They just come happily. They shoot films in India and go. and that film may collect a lot of money also. We'll also be happy because they shot their film in India. That's okay. We can just be psychologically happy with that. We didn't get any money, but still, we encouraged a film to be shot in India to this extent, which is very fine, fair, and definitely good. I mean, supportable argument, because we need more people to come to India and do some economic activity, no doubt about it. And these are not the people who are going to settle here. And these journalists also, these cinematographic films shooting people also, they just come, they do their job and go. That's what they do. They're as good as like tourists. So it will be really pathetic to tax tourists also, because they have just come to our country. If on the other side, if somebody just comes to India and let us say, just for understanding, I'm telling, it is not there in the law, just for an imaginary situation, some good photographer comes to India and travels in some of the good natural places in India, and he captures some fantastic photographs in India, and later he goes to wherever he came from. Imagine, let us say he has come from France or Paris. Then after some time he won some international award for photography and he got some $1 million prize money. Imaginary, nobody gets that. Then if India says, boss, because your photo was shot in India, because you took a photograph of India and you got money from that, please pay tax in that. Can we say that? Will it be fair? It will be absolutely, shameful, no, if we do that. So that is why we have to be little fair here. We cannot be too sunky in terms of asking tax from everybody in the world. So yes, we have been fair. We did a good job in drafting this. We did a good job in drafting this, and also drafting this, and also drafting this. But suddenly our people have dreams and they said, how can be so good? Suddenly, if we are so good, our reputation of not being so good also will be bad, no? So that is why they woke up and then they started with this nonsense. Look at this nonsense. Can't help it. But it is there. Don't think it is not applicable, sir. We are talking about an applicable law in India. We are criticizing it. That does not mean we can deny it or we can violate it. No, that we cannot do. We have an opinion. We don't like these provisions. That's fine. That is our choice. We have freedom of expression. But this is the law. What is the law now telling? So look at this, just for understanding. So anybody comes to India for shooting cinematographic films is not considered to be a business connection. However, if such non-resident is an individual who is not a citizen of India, then only it will be applicable. Means what? That non-resident, whoever shot a cinematographic film in India, should not be a citizen of India. I mean, I don't know what these people were thinking while drafting this. Boss, you are giving this benefit to people who are not citizens of India and you are denying that benefit to citizens of India. Is that what you do to your own citizens? Any country will do that? I don't know. Means, if Steven Spielberg comes to India and shoots a cinematographic film in India, and he will earn money by somehow displaying it throughout the world, and fine, whatever the money he makes, let him make. We will not tax him because he doesn't have any business connection with India. He just came to India for shooting a cinematographic film and he later just made some money from that film. We cannot tax him. We should not tax him. Very good. I'm not telling we should tax Steven Spielberg. No. But now look at the situation. Imagine if Shekhar Kapoor, who is a non-resident, generally as far as I know, Shekhar Kapoor comes to India, who normally stays in London somewhere, and who's a non-resident, by the way, non-resident, and I hope he is a citizen of India still. I don't know that. We don't know his passport. Imagine he's a citizen of India, but a non-resident, not generally staying in India, but comes to India for shooting a cinematographic film, and then he broadcasts everywhere in the world and makes money. Then what we call him? We call him, was you have a business connection with India because you are a citizen of India and you shot a cinematographic film in India and you made money out of that. Please pay tax to us because you have a business connection, means your income is deemed to accrue or arise in India. So pay money to us, we will say. Pay tax to us, we will say. Ridiculous what we can do. And this is a way our laws are drafted unnecessarily. Nobody, I don't know who, tries to draft these laws will think about it. We are giving a benefit which is good, no doubt. To whom? to the person who is not a citizen of India, we are giving benefit. To that extent also it is okay still. But see, they will not stop there. Now they are telling, if this non-resident is a firm, if it is individual, the point is, in order to get this benefit, benefit means what? Benefit of not falling under the category of business connection. In order to have that benefit, you should not be a citizen of India. So citizens of India do not have benefit. Who are not citizens of India have the benefit. Fantastic, very good. Not only that, individuals are at least understandable. Look at that. A firm means there is a foreign firm which is a non-resident naturally, and it should not have any partner who is a citizen of India and not even a resident of India. So the firm should not have any partner who is a citizen of India or a resident of India also. What nonsense is that? Means if any foreign firm comes to India for shooting the cinematographic films, if it has by mistake any citizen of India, at least here it is a citizen of India. To that extent, worst, even in the worst, this is only reasonably worse. This is like worse than the worst. Look at this one. Okay, so we can just go to the superlative things only. So if this is definitely bad, first one, bad. Individual who is a citizen of India is not getting the benefit of this exception. Who is not a citizen of India only is getting this exception if he comes to India for shooting cinematographic films. A firm is also getting this benefit only if it does not have any partner who is either a citizen of India or a resident of India. So somebody who is a citizen of India or a resident of India being a partner of a firm, that firm also will not get this benefit. So if this is bad, this is worse. Okay, worse also is fine. Now the worst comes. This is horrible. Really horrible, Why? We are talking about a company which does not have any shareholder. They are dreaming it. The company should not have any shareholder who is a citizen of India or who is a resident of India. Who is a citizen of India, who is a resident of India. So now, if any of you generally follow English movies, at least let us say Hollywood movies, how many big houses of production are there in America? Most of them are definitely listed companies. So in that there will be thousands of shareholders. In that, not even one person should be a citizen of India. Not even one person should be a resident of India. How is it possible, sir? How is it possible that an international filmmaking corporations do not have not even a single citizen of India or a resident of India as a shareholder? If one person is a shareholder also like that, they lose this benefit. Means what? For the mistake of them coming to India for shooting cinematographic films, we'll ask them to pay tax. So what is the essence of all this? Nobody will come, because after reading this, if anybody is really having any brain, they will never in their dreams also look at India as an option to choose for their shooting, because they have a fear now. If they come to India for shooting also, we may ask for tax, no? The mistake what they have done is, they have contributed to our economy. The mistake what they have done is, they have given a lot of money to our tourism industry and our lot of, at least short-term employment they created. Because of that grave mistake, we are taxing them. Look at our fantastic drafting of the law. So individuals, understandable. Okay, you don't want to give this benefit to a citizen of India. Fine, understandable. Bad, but understandable. Firm doesn't make sense. Company, it's like no words. Nobody can say that. If we are saying that a company which has a shareholder who is a citizen or resident of India, if it comes to India for shooting of cinematographic films, it is supposed to have business connection. It is deemed to have business connection, naturally. When you have so expressly told that shooting of cinematographic films in India is not amounting to business connection, and when you have excluded these people, naturally that means it is inclusion. Exclusion to an exclusion is inclusion. That means if any company, definitely there will be one shareholder who is a citizen of India or a resident of India. That company comes to India for shooting cinematographic films, we are going to harass them. Whether they pay tax or not is a different story. We have the power to unnecessarily call that as a business connection. We have the power to give them notices and chase them for their life for tax. And who wants that? Who cares about that? They will say, thank you very much, Ram Ram India. We will not come to your country. And this our great tax provisions prevent investments in such way because of this horrible drafting, horrible thought process itself. And what is the reason behind it? Okay, if anybody can tell that, that also I'm okay. Okay, what is the reason behind it? Okay, you want to think that somebody who is in India might create in reality a foreign company which is not an Indian company, like a fake company somebody will create in Mauritius, and they will come to India as if they have shot some films in India. They will make all the revenue outside India. That is what your crooked thought process is. I don't know. The people here who are like Indian filmmakers, they are having a lot of options. They are anyway not making any profit, sir. And what what is that additional tax we are going to collect from losses? I don't understand. End of the day, this company thing is completely dangerous for any foreign filmmaker if they come to India. Again, already some people are thinking, if somebody comes, where are we going to chase them with tax and all? Not going to happen. We are talking theoretically. This is the law. Law is there, so many things will be there. But ultimately, implementation is a different story. But the law itself is so pathetic that if it is implemented, that can be not giving any good signals in the world. That's what we're talking. Okay? That is one more thing which is not considered as a, we can say, business connection. That is the fourth one. What is the first one? Where there is a partial business within India, operations are partly in India, partly outside India. Simply to the extent that is in India, which is having business connection, the extent outside India is not considered to be having business connection. Direct point. Same way, if purchase of goods happens in India for the purpose of export, that is not called as business connection. Collection of news and views in India for transmission out of India, not considered as business connection. Shooting of cinematographic films in India, not considered as business connection. Shooting is not considered as business connection. And we created some unnecessary complications there by saying that this exception is available only if this non-resident is not a citizen of India, or a firm in which no partner should be a citizen of India or a resident of India, or this shooting should be done by a company in which no shareholder should be a citizen of India or resident of India. Then only we say there is no business connection. If not, there is business connection, is what those provisions are talking about. In addition to that, there is one more thing. Just you can remember the heading here. That is enough. Activities confined to display of rough diamonds in the SNZ. That is called special zones. So in the case of special zones, certain companies are particularly allowed to operate in these special notified zones. And those, what are they doing? They are in the business of mining of diamonds, and only they are displaying of rough diamonds. They are only display of the uncut diamonds without any sale. I don't know, maybe why this is called as an exception. They are only displaying, sir. So what we are telling is it is not a business connection. Okay, it is not a business connection. Anybody knows. Displaying is not a sale. No, displaying is not an income. Exhibition is different, sale is different. Exhibition cannot be called as an income. So let us understand this way. If some foreigner or some other non-resident comes to India for displaying of rough diamonds, that too not everywhere, not on the road somewhere, special notified zones, then we say there is no business connection. Okay, I know it is interesting because there is a word diamond. My suggestion is, once again, just forget about it. Don't worry about all this nonsense. Nonsense has limits outside Income Tax Act, not within that. So sometimes we have to cope with that because it is a part of it. We can't help it. So these are the various cases where there is no business connection. These are the things where we will say that the following shall not be considered as having business connection. 5 points are there. That itself should give you a bell to your alarm. Your brain should have this alarm bell. 5 points are there, means 5 marks question is possible. You should be able to write the say headings, and at least the key points you should be able to write. So partly having a business operations in India, purchase of goods in India for export, collection of news and views in India for transmission outside India, shooting of cinematographic films in India with some exceptions, activities confined to the display of rough diamonds in the special notified zones. These are all called as what? Not having business connection. Simply speaking, that. Clear? That is what is business connection. That is enough. When we talk about section 9.1, this is the only thing where business connection required this much of explanation. All others are self-explanatory. We don't need to go through them in detail, though they are there. So do we know that if any property is there in India, any income from that is deemed to accrue or arise in India? Of course, sir. We don't need any explanation for that. If any transfer of property or a capital asset happens in India, that is deemed to accrue or arise in India. For every other point we are talking about here, we don't need any further explanations, though they are available particularly in the institute material which is there. However, only for business connection is a very litigant word. That is why we needed a bit more understanding on that. Though it took some time, only for theoretical purposes this will be useful. With that, we can conclude section 9.1, and actually with that we can even conclude the section 5 also, which is talking about the scope of total income. All other things are just not required for any particular problem solving at all. So all the things are self-explanatory. Headings themselves are enough. What are those things? A is business connection. B and C, income from property. These headings, what are there in the diagram, those are the same things. Income from property, asset or source of income in India. Naturally, that is taxable because it is deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, other things like we have one more thing, that is here, income through transfer of a capital asset situated in India. Naturally, that is also taxable. Income from salaries earned in India, taxable. Income from salaries earned outside India, if it is payable by Indian government to the Indian citizen, that is also taxable. That is also part of the income which are deemed to accrue or arise in India. Same way, dividends paid by Indian company outside India also shall be deemed to accrue or arise in India. Then we have three things: interest, we have royalty, and then we have fees for technical services. Don't try to go through all these things, that is going to be unnecessary. It will not help much, rather it will create a lot of questions which can never be answered by anybody unless you are actually doing any court practice, not even chartered accountancy practice. Most of them will be litigation related things, so don't worry about them. Only the essence of all these things we should be clear: interest, royalty, fees for technical services. What is the essence? That we know already. If it is payable by the government, automatically it is taxable. If it is payable by a resident or a non-resident, doesn't matter. In all those cases, why it will be taxable, when it will be taxable? It will be taxable if that is utilized for the purpose of a business or profession in India, or for the purpose of earning any income from any other source in India. Then directly we can conclude that those are all incomes accruing or arising or deemed to accrue or arise in India. So that is enough. These are enough words for anybody to apply those provisions. Details of what is royalty, what is fees for technical services, which are there. If anybody having interest, you can go through that. Otherwise also it doesn't matter. With this, we can conclude all the provisions in relation to residential status and tax incidents. And in the next class, we will straight away move on to solving of problems which are going to be definitely asked in the main exam. Compulsory question can be expected from this particular chapter. So we will do those questions which can be anytime asked in the examinations. That we will do in the next session. Till that time, I would request all of you to go through the provisions very thoroughly before solving problems. Provisions are very important. Again, now we are just entering into the real metal of income tax. There will be a lot of things. Daily it may look like simple, but at the end of the chapter, when we start solving the problems, we have to recollect all the provisions which we discussed in 7-8 days. For example, in the case of salaries, that might be after 10-15 days, we have to solve the problems. So you have to remember every provision before solving the problems. So it cannot be a temporary memory loss. Gajini type of memory is not enough for taxation. Everybody should be remembering the entire essence of the chapter, whichever chapter it is. Essence definitely should be there, details should be there, twist points if any. Suddenly, like cinematographic films, somebody is having a company is having a shareholder who is a resident. Is there a business connection or not? We should know that. Those are like twist points, separate points, variety questions. Those things also to be noted. But in essence, for solving the problems, we need lot of memory with provisions that we already know. So the core aspects of the provisions have to be very well remembered before solving any problems. So that should be done by you. And once you do that exercise, then definitely we can move on to solving of the problems, which will happen in the next session. Till that time, take care. Thank you very much. Bye bye.